third time, I now want to take us to a film. This is from the PBS series Roll Tape. This is the United Nations, I think, 47-48.
The history of Israeli diplomacy is a history of cliffhangers. There's never been a case where our victory was assured. If we lost, we'd have been worse off than before. It's one thing not to have Jewish statehood confirmed, but to have Jewish statehood rejected is a much worse condition.
Afghanistan? No. Argentina? Argentina? Abstention? Ethiopia? Abstain? France? Yes?
I am confident on the way you will behave in a so serious decision taken by this assembly, because I am decided not to allow anybody to interfere in our decision.
South Africa? Yes. Soviet Union? Yes. United Kingdom? Abstain? Yes. United States? Venezuela? Yes. Yes. Yemen? No. Yugoslavia? Abstain.
The resolution of the DUC Committee on Palestine was adopted by 30 votes, 30 in abstention.
6 months from now, in May 1948, the British mandate will end. And 50 years after Herzl, it will no longer be a dream.
How long did that jubilation last?
It lasted for about 24 hours. It didn't really wear off because it was a historic moment. As I say there, if it had gone the other way, we would have been in a very bleak situation. But the next morning, there were bombs. And the next morning, we were being bombarded in Jerusalem. And the question is, will this state, which was recommended, then will it come into existence? And that's what I meant when I said that we had the joy of birth and the fear of death almost in the same moment.
Yeah. Do you think now, when you look at where Mr. Rabin Prime Minister Rabin is taking Israel, that in a sense, after '77, when Likud came in and you were out of power, having been foreign minister, deputy prime minister, having served your country really as the principal explainer of Israel to the world, that your positions then were ahead of the time, and now the time is catching up to where your positions were?
Yes, that's exactly the way I feel. I was in that room in the Dan Hotel in Tel Aviv, waiting in great suspense for the result. And when the announcer said, well, it's a complete reversal, my heart came to a certain beat. And I thought, I'm going to see a post-Likud era after all. That is to say, we're going back really to the generation of the founding fathers who had a lucid and visionary idea of compromise and who knew that we couldn't live outside the international order and that we were a land of two peoples, two nations, two faiths, two tongues. Therefore, we had to share territory and sovereignty. And I remember saying, rejoice, beloved country, hoping that no one would hear. But, of course, somebody in CNN heard it, and this was put on.
In your long service to your country, what are you proudest of? What do you view as your finest moment?
I've no doubt that the best moment that I've ever celebrated was this. I had the distinction of going along to the United Nations and putting the flag on the flagpole in the circle of banners that symbolizes the equality and sovereignty of all nations on earth. And I had the sensation, first of all, I still have the feeling in my hands of the rope with which I put the flag up. I had a feeling that the status of the Jewish people in history was being irreversibly changed.
That moment of pulling that flag up gave you...
Yes, the sense of, there was a kind of a sublime sense of tranquil satisfaction, which I've never been able to forget.
It's a remarkable experience to be able to play a role in the founding of a nation.
Yes, I'm trying to develop in Israel what I've called the concept of the founding fathers. it's a very fertile and fruitful American example. First of all, plural. There isn't just one founder. There is a generation of founding fathers. And I feel about my own country that we ought now to look back to the founders of our nation with a sense of pride and of elevation, because they performed what people thought was beyond any kind of contrivance. They took the remnants, the scattered remnants of a people, brought them together. 680,000 Jews joined the Israeli state in the first 3 years. And that's why I've not been able to associate myself with some of my colleagues who thought that we ought to apologize because we might not perhaps have treated all of these 680,000 immigrants as they really ought to have been treated. I don't think we need to apologize for that generation at all. There must have been something in that generation, in the simplicity of its mannerisms, in the lack of pretension which accompanied it. I think there was something there which must account for this sudden emergence of an Israeli nation.
And those founding fathers would include everybody from David Ben-Gurion to Menachem Begin.
Yes, it would include them. It would also include a nearly forgotten figure, the first of our presidents, Chaim Weizmann. Yeah. We called him the great persuader. A man who could persuade people like Einstein, like Churchill, like Lloyd George, like others, that it would be not an intemperate thing to do to establish a Jewish state in the middle of the Arab world. That was an act of persuasion which I think cannot compare with any other.
Abba Eban, dead at 87. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
החוק הקיים מספיק בהחלט להתמודד עם כל פגיעה אפשרית בביטחון המדינה העלולה לנבוע חלילה ממגעים בלתי סבירים, וכל המוסיף גורע.